A heartfelt thank you to Mr. Ninami and Mr. Sawada for sharing your invaluable insights and perspectives on the dynamic changes shaping our industries and future collaborations. We heard about resilience, heard about partnership, we heard about geopolitics shifting priorities, connecting, trusting, integrity, and diversity. And Mr. Ninami started with talking about planning. There's a great quote about planning that I wanted to share with you on this topic. Planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. And as you heard, engagement is critical and key. And so whether that's knocking on Suntory's door, you were all invited today, or whether it's embracing Gen AI and distributed AI models like NTT Tsuzumi, and 75% of the room are over the age of 40, as we already heard the statistic earlier today that I shared and Audrey shared. I personally I plan to live to 150, so I have a long way to go. And all I can say is that I will yatte mimasu around a lot of the innovations and ways that leadership is going to drive the next generation of change and progress and prosperity. Okay, so as Audrey mentioned, we believe that the key to the future of our global partnership is our next generation of leaders. Before I introduce our final two speakers for the morning plenary, I'd like to take a moment to highlight our programs that foster a global mindset for our future leaders. These programs include our Tomodachi initiative that cultivates Japanese and American leaders through education and cultural exchanges between the United States and Japan. Our Emerging Leaders program that inspires high-potential Japanese-American leaders to promote strong U.S.-Japan relations in both their personal and professional lives. The Toshizo Watanabe Study Abroad Scholarship Program that is made possible by Mr. Watanabe, who I believe we are honored to have with us today, empowers students to pursue academic and cultural experiences that deepen their connection to Japan and inspire a lifelong commitment to friendship to U.S.-Japan relations. And the Mineta Ambassadors Program, which was launched this year in partnership with the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, cultivates future leaders by fostering global mindsets and strengthening the resilience of the special relationship between the United States and Japan. I'd like to invite all of our alumni and current participants of these programs to please stand now. Don't be shy. Thank you. Thank you for joining me in giving that big round of applause. You represent the hope and future of the next era of our global partnership. To close this morning's plenary, we are honored to welcome Ambassador Rahm Emanuel to the stage for an interview with Kathy Matsui, co-chair of the Board of Directors of the U.S.-Japan Council. As many of you know, Ambassador Emanuel has been instrumental in fostering bilateral relationships and beyond. His leadership has strengthened not only at the national level, but also at the local level, impacting cities, communities, and individuals. Ambassador Emanuel and Kathy, the stage is yours.
Welcome.
Hi, Kath.
Hey. So we are really privileged to have Ambassador Emanuel with us today. You see, we have over 700 participants at this annual conference, and I think we just wanted to use this session to share a little bit about your leadership in various initiatives that are strengthening the partnership between the US and Japan. And I'd like to start with, if I may, last year, 2023, there was a very historic summit at Camp David, which you participated in. And if you could just talk to the audience a little bit about this next phase or next era of the trilateral partnership between U.S., Japan, and the Republic of Korea?
One is just step back. While the Korea one is obviously track is very, very important. Yeah. There's a second track, which is also the U.S., Japan, Philippine track.
Yeah.
On the Korea front, just a couple observations. Starting on November 15th, we will have, I think the second, it's called Freedom Edge. It's a trilateral military exercise. It's the second installation of that exercise. And then this morning, given the launch by North Korea of the test of the ICBM, it is a kind of heads up of why it's so valuable to do those exercises. On the 25th of October, just last week, all three national security advisors met in D.C. in Jake Sullivan's office and for a full day, and then there were separate bilats, et cetera, between Korea and Japan, U.S. There's a potential of a heads of state meeting, whether it's off the side of either APEC, G20, or a standalone trilateral. And all of these are implementations on the security side, the diplomatic side / political side of building kind of a coherent philosophy and approach, and part of the president's view of going away from a hub and spoke to a lattice work. Mm-hmm. Now, the fourth one, which I know we're going to talk about this subject, is we had launched in the president's visit here in May a unique partnership sponsored by both IBM and Google for $150 million between University of Chicago. Mm-hmm. I put my thumb on the scale and picked that. Played the home team there, and Tokyo U on quantum computing. And about 6 months later, after August, we added Seoul National University. And the government, actually in Korea, put money towards that project. Fantastic. And so it's all staying on the cutting edge, using the best three universities by the countries on quantum computing. So that's a variation of it. But two observations I would make. It gets lost, and it's not like the biggest thing. But in a period of time where you have conflicts, and obviously Russia's invasion of Ukraine, October 7th war, the meeting in Camp David was a victory for diplomacy and dialogue. In a period of time where every problem is resolved with conflict, you can't lose sight of the fact that here was, I think if we can say it, the United States' relationship with Japan is complicated. The United States' relationship with Korea is complicated. The relationship between Korea and Japan is complicated. And you had three leaders not choose conflict, not choose belligerence, but chose diplomacy and dialogue to try to look to the future and map a different future. So to me, that was a testament, and I'm going to get the exact data wrong, but since August of 2023 at Camp David, there's been a little over 70 different trilateral gatherings on security side, political side, economic side, and when you put them, that comes to around 6 or 7 different trilaterals per month. Wow. So it does tell you that the desire of the political systems, writ large, to kind of embed and institutionalize this as a new, not just kind of ad hoc structure, but make it a more formal structure. Mm-hmm.
But those don't get news headlines. The
No.
wars get headlines, right?
Wars get headlines. Camp David was received, but the other meetings when Freedom Edge happens, but by way of example, next week, but by way of example, the three national security advisors met. Nobody even took notice. And I will tell you, either that's a healthy sign or not healthy, is 10 years ago, if the three national security advisors for the presidents, for the heads of state of the three countries had met, that would have been news. Right. Now it's become norm. So the good news is to become norm. The bad news is we lose sight of how significant it is.
And somebody told me that you were quite instrumental in putting that whole summit together. Is that just a rumor, or?
My mother thinks I was the only reason it happened is because of me.
We believe your mom.
Yeah. Welcome to the life of a Jewish mother, but then she would criticize you. So when there must be a Jew over there. Yeah. She was laughing a little too hard in that corner. when I was President Obama's chief of staff, I had a direct engagement with negotiating the free trade agreement between the United States and Korea. And in fact, when the agreement gets signed, the only city that the president of Korea goes to visit outside of Washington for the signing is Chicago. And that was not because the Cubs or the Sox were playing well. And the ambassador from Korea to Washington is now the prime minister of Korea. So he and I communicated regularly for the last year. And in addition, and I want to give a shout out to my colleague, Phil Goldberg in Korea, who also played as much a role as I did. And to be an ambassador and for a short period of time to work on something that tips the scales was very interesting, et cetera. But he, not only representing the United States here, but having contacts over there in Korea was helpful on the margins.
So really a pivotal moment in, I think, Far East Asian history.
Well, think of it this way, if you're even cynical, 4 months after the Camp David trilateral, China wanted to restart their trilateral. So that's what a summit envy looks like. So that tells you that it clearly somebody in Beijing saw something here a little competitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit to educational partnerships. We also at USJC know that you were instrumental in your leadership of the Mineta Ambassadors Program. Which
you have some Mineta scholars here.
Yes, absolutely.
Like 7 of them.
Which was launched this year with $12 million US dollars.
Yeah.
I think some people's arms and shoulders may be in pain from being twisted. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm proud of that.
But we are honored at USJC to be, a partner in this incredible endeavor. But talk to us a little bit about why was this so important to you, and what kind of unlocked this partnership to begin with?
I want to give a shout out to Apple. They were like nearly half of that money. So I want to say that. And it was, 2 reasons, or 3. I mean, one of my first visits to Okinawa, I had a dinner with, call it 18, 19 high school kids that were going to spend the summer in the United States. And I remember this young woman, I mean, just the kind of look in her eye and the sound of her voice, how promising that was. Put a pin in that, hold it there. Senator Cornyn from Texas, second-ranking senator in the Republican caucus, spent a year when he was a junior in high school studying in Japan. And he has a very particular affection for Japan. Now, I always believed that it was kind of important, et cetera. And then I run into Japanese government officials, business officials, who have all studied in different universities in the United States. And I paid kind of over my career lip service to it. But then you realize that these experiences, you never know where, the ball is round. You just don't know where it's going to bounce. And it has a really big impact in the U.S. relationship with Japan. You can do all the treaties you want. You can do the Camp Davids you want. You can do the military exercise you want. If the 2 peoples don't trust each other or know each other, it's only going to go so far. And so these academic exchanges play a role. And then a personal thing. I knew Norm Mineta, both at the Clinton White House, but actually a side note, when I first got elected to Congress, Norm is serving Transportation Secretary in George Bush's White House. I wasn't exactly a welcomed person in the Bush White House. I earned it, but I wasn't exactly. Anyway, my first visit, Norm had broke his leg or hurt. Somehow he was in a wheelchair, and I remember his leg was in I think he'd just gotten out of surgery. And he helped me, my first thing, like within the first month, secure $450 million to improve a mass transit, the Brown Line, through the center of my congressional district. And made me look like I knew what I was doing as a congressman. And so I always felt a passion. And then I actually think Norm's personal story is a powerful story. Here was this thing that one of the big blemishes on America and its ideals was the internment of Japanese Americans. Norm was interned. And then he comes out to be a mayor, a congressman, a chairman of a committee, served a Democratic president, a Republican president, and never lost faith with America, and America had lost faith with Norm. And I think there's a power in not only Norm's story, but his values. So I wanted to honor him in some way.
Fabulous. So, a couple more questions, if I may. So
I'll try to shorten my answer.
it's okay.
Yeah.
In terms of the opportunities ahead for the U.S. and Japan going forward, I know there are tons, and we've talked a little bit about them already. But personally, I'm in the startup space, innovation space, and you mentioned a little bit earlier about this. But what do you see as kind of the biggest opportunities ahead for the two nations when it comes to innovation? Because I think a lot of people also in this room are engaged in that space.
One of the, we did some stuff on semiconductors, about the quantum computing, and then we did two different approaches, $60 million each on AI. Carnegie Mellon, Keio University, Scuba University, Washington U, and it was all funded by, not all, but almost all of it, by US companies in that space. But an ancillary secondary benefit. The primary is pure research. My hope, though, is, and one of the things I've been pleasantly surprised, the research in Japanese universities, primary R&D, biomedical, etc., is world class. Off the charts. In the United States, every one of those products would already be patented, IP'd, you'd be out venture fund, etc. I don't know if there's a cultural thing in the sense of wanting to do research and not the commercialization, whatever. I'm hoping that some of how the United States academic people doing research kind of filters in to the universities here, because the research here is off the charts. It's the commercialization piece that is missing. Now, the United States, we have our own challenges, et cetera, in and around the research stuff. So my hope is people build off of this. It doesn't just go into the companies, but goes into the large, and then there's a lot of startups that come out of this.
Right.
So, I'm hoping there's beyond patent papers and product, there's also a commercial it doesn't get lost in the transatlantic.
I think
or stopped at global entry and TSA.
I think the good news is, at least from my vantage point, we are definitely seeing more research conversion into commercial ideas coming out of Japan. It's still small in scale, no doubt, but there definitely is an increased flow of ideas being materialized.
There's a fusion company out of, I think, Kyoto, and
Kyoto Fusion,
there's a I've met with them, and there's an AI company down in Fukuoka that's also impressive. There's a lot of great research. I don't want to try to single out companies, but that leap, it's, there's an interesting thing, and there's a side note, I know we have 5 minutes, but it's actually when you're away from America, there's a lot of things that come into focus about America, both good and bad, being away here. One of them is you always take note of commercialization, entrepreneurship. But when you're away, you realize it actually is a real strength in America.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I know we are less than a week away from the big day, and I know I'm going off script here. I'm not going to ask you to predict the outcome. What I am going to ask you...
Now, I don't know if you noticed, but as I start to do my kind of
now you're going like this.
In the Jewish faith, this would be davening, like prayer. This is what prayer looks like in the Jewish faith, okay?
We're all doing the same motion here.
Yeah. As I said to one reporter off the record, I said, some people, what are the Japanese saying? I said, well, a lot of agnostic people have now turned to the power of prayer.
Our only hope.
People that don't believe in a supreme being are all of a sudden turning to the power of prayer. So I didn't say what they were praying for, so I want to make sure I don't get in any. There's some lawyer at State Department ready to jump on me. Okay, I didn't put my thumb on the scale of what I thought. Okay. Go ahead.
My question, though, is...
I'm trying to run down the clock.
I know you are. So I'm trying to interrupt you. Yeah. So whatever...
This is a Bill Clinton skill.
So whatever the outcome may be, what can we at U.S.-Japan Council do constructively, in spite of whatever happens, to move the alliance forward? What suggestions do you have for all of these 700 plus members in this room?
I feel like the U.S. soldier in the North Korea jail. I'll answer like this. You know, it was a great diplomatic career. I'll be fired now at the end of this interview. It was supposed to be a light interview, and it was great. Former Ambassador Emanuel, thank you very much for coming. It was so good. It was a great run while it happened. So I can give you two answers. One answer, which both are honest. Let me start on the positive. Look, and it relates to the Mineta piece. Mm-hmm. The relationship between the United States and Japan is firm because the relationship between the peoples is firm. It's strong. And there's, I joke, but I'm also serious, that in the United States Congress, there are two countries that have massive bipartisan agreement. One on China and the other on Japan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're not the same agreement. And regardless of what happens on the presidency, there is a great groundswell of support in both the House and the Senate among Democrats and Republicans about the importance of the U.S.-Japan alliance, full stop. Now, as a former chief of staff and a former senior advisor to two different presidents, don't underestimate the power of the executive branch. Now, here's the other side of it. And this, look, I hate using this analogy, but I'm going to use it, which is the Indo-Pacific is a home game for China and is an away game for the United States. Mm. I hate using that analogy because, God forbid, it is a conflict. I don't use sports analogies. And if you want to make it closer for the United States so it isn't an away game, you can't do it without allies. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you have a view of the importances of not only alliances, but allies, who will then go an extra step, and this goes back to Camp David. While there was a lot of work being done by a lot of different people, and you gave me credit, a lot of people went into it. The trust that Prime Minister Kishida had and the President had and Prime Minister Kishida, and vice versa, between President Yoon and Prime Minister Kishida, and President Biden and President Yoon, you will go past the bare minimum if you trust the other person. You'll stretch yourself, you'll take a risk, you'll do a little more. Mm-hmm. So if you believe in alliances, you invest in allies, you're going to strengthen America's position here. Mm-hmm. And so I think to all of us, you know, the power of Japan in America, and I say this as somebody who started his career working for President Clinton, writing ads about Japan. Mm. It tells you where in 30 years things have gone politically in the United States, where Japan has gone. I mean, people, there was a story today in the New York Times, just by anecdotal reference, how New York and LA were watching the World Series. Mm-hmm. And the story out of New York was about Little Tokyo. Mm-hmm. Trust me, who they were watching. I think they were rooting for the Dodgers. But it tells you something. I mean, it's a national pastime in both our countries. So the fundamentals are there, and it's built. And I say this as somebody who kind of lip serviced it before, but now has come to part of the experience. The people to people, the business to business, the university to university permits. It's a permission slip for what you follow on government, military, space, etc. And I don't think it's an accident that when you look across the globe, you could have picked any astronaut to be the first astronaut, foreign astronaut to go to the moon with us, and the United States picked a Japanese astronaut. That is not where we were a little over 70 years ago, and it tells you the power when you can be the bitterest of foes. With a little work, you can become the best of friends. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would work on, is friendship.
Great.
Okay?
We still have 10 seconds left. Anybody who follows the ambassador on X, formerly Twitter, knows that the ambassador loves to ride trains in Japan.
Yes.
So what is your favorite
Well,
destination or train?
no. First of all, I'm going to hit 60 to commemorate Shinkansen's 60th birthday.
Oh.
And so I'll be going to Hiroshima, I think, if everything works out for that. The other piece, look, I love them all, but I will, I used to say to my mother, I have two brothers on either side. I used to say to my mother, you love Ezekiel more than you love me. She goes, no, I hate you all equally. So I don't want to pick my favorite ride, but that said, the Hayanku line, the seats on that train.
Hayaku line.
Hayanku, did I say it wrong?
Hayate? Where does it go?
Well, obviously, I thought the train was great, but I can't pronounce it, so.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right. Hayanku. Hayanku very much was our social media, and I got a seat from the train guy. From when I complimented the train ride, he sent me
Wow.
I have my own seat.
Okay.
And while I never reported it to the ethics office of the State Department, I'm not giving that seat back, okay?
So you heard it here first. Ambassador Emanuel has a seat. Thank you very much for your time.